Welcome back to the Delegation Download and our series at the Delegation Shift Let Go to Level Up. This series is focused on providing the tools for growth minded leaders ready to move beyond the weeds and into their next level.
Today, we're really excited to bring on a special guest. The incredible Correy O'Neal is here to talk about burnout, the power of delegation, and what it really looks like to build the support that you actually need in your business.
I'm really excited to have Correy on the podcast today to talk about her experience. Correy and I have a long history together. We have actually known each other since high school. We have remained friends through questionable fashion of the 2000s and all the life changes. And fast forward to now, Correy, you have become a great support system for me for all things entrepreneurship, motherhood, and our own health journeys. Correy, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Correy O'Neal, raised in California, but now live in Columbus, Ohio. I'm a two-time founder of mental health technology companies. I've been building other people's businesses for years. And I think the through line of my career and honestly my personal life is that I invest myself where impact matters and figuring out how can I use my experience, use my personal story to help people, whether I'm relieving pain or hardship or just lifting moods. I really try to invest myself in purpose-driven areas.
Well, Correy, thank you so much for joining us. I think that the conversation that we're going to have today will bring a lot of insight to business owners just with what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis or what they're going to deal with or what they have dealt with. So I want to start by asking, when was the first time that you recognized that were going to face burnout, and what did it look like for you?
So when I this was 10 years ago, but I was working for a company, Soul Pancake, and I was an early hire. I was the head of sales and marketing. And I was in my 20s, so I had a lot more energy. And I went into the office at 5 a.m. and wore that with a badge of honor. I got there, opened the office, and I was there too late. I spent so many of my years pushing myself so hard that I was really neglecting my physical well-being and neglecting a lot of the relationships in my life. And so I would actually say my first signals around burnout were relational. It was where I was no longer connected to the people around me. I was newly married and barely saw my husband. I was prioritizing travel. And so the problem with that, though, is that I didn't feel the burnout. And so while I might have course corrected for several years after and I did better with balance, it was really as a founder myself about 3 years ago, burnout was an active feeling in my body, and it took my body screaming at me and a number of appointments before I recognized that I was really teetering on burnout for 10 years. And I just got really good at putting band-aids on different places. But it got to a place a few years ago where my body was like, you either deal with this or you have to be done with your startup. So yeah, it was relational. And then it took my body screaming at me.
Yeah, and they say, I mean, I can so relate to that, and I'm sure so many people can. They say that if you don't give your body rest, it will force you to rest. And it took me also so long to realize that. And I know it's big now. I feel like it's a really big topic right now that rest is needed and we have to do. But I feel like you said 10 years ago, it wasn't that. It was you wore your burnout as a badge of honor and almost a necessity. So I love that it's come so far, the realization that it shouldn't be that way and that you personally are doing things to help others who are experiencing it and all of that. So I love that.
Well, and if I can just name how embarrassing it was a few years ago, I'm building a mental health startup and being hit with burnout. I mean, what a wake up call. And also from an integrity perspective, it was a wake up call. I can't keep building these tools for other people if I don't use them myself. If I'm prioritizing technology and revenue and all of these other things for the business, and then letting myself fall apart, I'm being really inauthentic to the product and our customers. And it actually helped me be a lot better in my business, specifically Movement Genius, because I finally acknowledged the reality, which was I was burning, at both ends. And like there was a limited supply of my energy, of my attention, and I needed to take care of it.
Yeah, I think that it's also hard when it has felt so normal for so long, to be honest. I think that it just becomes a normal feeling, and until you start addressing it and you start feeling a different way, it's almost like you have to look back and be like, "Wow, I was burnt out." But it's very hard to realize that it's happening if it has become your normal.
Yeah, agree.
So I think that, I mean, burnout is definitely a warning light. It is telling you your body needs, like we said, rest. What in your experience has been the top signs that you see day to day in your home life come up due to feeling burnout? Because I think that something that we've talked about is that you don't just overcome burnout once, right? This is something that you always have to be aware of, that check engine light coming on, and it needs to be addressed because life is busy. We are all very busy, have a lot to handle. And it's something that we just now, once you overcome it once, it can happen again, but you're more aware of it. So when you're now looking back as of today, what are the signs that you tend to look for in your day to day?
Yeah. So I think some of my first signals, I have some of the body signals that I'll go back to, but actually the ones that I notice first are the relational signals, and they're with my kids. And as my kids start to have like bigger emotions that they're having trouble regulating, if they're like more reactive to things, if they're struggling with transitions, like a lot of those are normal childhood things. But I noticed that when I've pushed it too far and when I'm lacking boundaries, I'm usually lacking that like intimate connection that's required for a healthy home. So that's actually one of my early signals that something isn't working. And I'm now able, when my kids are like being more reactive, for example, one of my first things is like, have I engaged them without my phone in my hand for the last day? Did I, like, make dinner with my AirPods in, or was I, like, engaging them in conversation as we were, like, serving at the table? So, relationally, and then the same goes for my husband, like, we do such a good job keeping each other in check now, but again, like, the fracturing of the relationship is usually some of my first signals that, like, I'm on not a good path. Physically, I live with chronic illness now, which I can attribute some of it, I'm sure, to, like, pushing my body in the ways that I have. And my body, like my joints, I feel like I'm, 2 or 3 times my age because my joints like wake me up in the middle of the night. And I have chronic pain all the time, but it is very interesting to me that when I'm on a path to burnout or just like pushing myself too hard, my joints scream. And that's my body, I think, remembering like, when you keep doing this, the outcome is that you fall apart, that you get very sick, that, yada, yada. But yeah, it's really, like, relational, and then, like, my freaking hip joints. Those are, like, telltale signs that I'm on the path to destruction.
Yeah, I think all of that is so relatable. And I've had a lot of reflection on how I show up for my kids and how the energy in the household is. And it really does, it starts with us, right? We can say, blame them all we want, the kids and, that kind of thing. But in reality, it comes to us. And that word connection that you said is huge. When we are not making the time for 5 minutes of connection, it makes a really big difference.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes the signs are very easy to miss. You could say, like, oh, I'm just stressed, or I'm just busy, or I have this big project. Well, yes, you have all of those things that are happening, but how is it affecting you? How is it affecting your life as a human being, not just a professional? And that is what you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the patterns, Corey, that you see in your day to day life, your business, everything that you're doing that keep or tend to put you in the cycle of overwork and burnout and feeling that you're starting to get to that point of no return?
Hmm. You know, I am like a creative problem solver. So I would prefer to spend my time on like strategizing on new sales opportunities or meeting with folks who, on the movement genius side, we license out a lot of clinical programming to like health tech apps and corporate wellness teams and CPG products. So I love spending time like noodling with them. But one thing I've noticed is when I deprioritize all of the business ops that just have to get done, and I'm spending time in what I would call like fun business zone, when I start to see that pattern, I'm also seeing like my stack of to dos pile up. And if I consistently can't complete like 3 very important tasks a day, mind you, they might be like processing payroll, which is a few clicks, right? But if I can't get like 3 important things done a day, then I know I'm not prioritizing the things that need to be done for the business. And I'm essentially like disassociating and like having fun because I need that like payoff. But really, again, these are signals for me that like I'm moving back into um kind of a pattern of burnout where I'm like avoidant of the things that I need to do because I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed out, I'm tired, I'm trying to do too much in a day. And then I'm like going after those shiny, happy conversations. But those are like, yeah, like tactically speaking, if I can't get 3 important things done a day, a few days in a row, then I know I'm like moving in the wrong direction and I need to readjust.
We said it in an episode, or I said it in an episode. I don't remember which episode it was, but that being busy is not being productive. Just because you're busy does not mean that you're productive. So you still have to check those things off the list, even if they are done by somebody else and you delegate them to somebody else, knowing that they're getting done. But you have to continue to work off of your to-do list, off of your reoccurring list, because just being busy, you're not making any forward momentum. You're just circling the drain, just trying to get things done and move in some type of direction.
I kind of feel like there's maybe an opportunity for you to turn that into a meditation that we all listen to in the morning. Like, just start our day with, like, a busyness is not productivity or, like, you know what I mean?
This is Nichole Hughes. Good morning. Busy is not productive.
Yeah. Like,
Like the look, I feel like maybe I just need to listen to it as I sleep. I don't so it'll soak in.
yeah, subconsciously just, like, implant that one in.
Yeah. I think that we've come from this just I've been more aware of it where when people say, "Hey, how's it going? How have you been?" "Oh, just so busy." That's always my response. And I'm like, "No, stop. How identify what I've been doing, right?" And like you said, Corey, if I can't identify 3 things, then I'm probably just busy doing either, like you said, the fun stuff, or I will also find myself just doing all the little things on my to-do list that are quick to get that dopamine hit of checking something off my list. And I think those are really big signs that, like you said, you're neglecting the list because it's just too long. And I think that that is us confusing busyness with value for sure. So I would love to know, because I have talked a lot about this too, is our view of success, what that word means to us. How has that shifted for you as you've started addressing burnout in the last 10 years? What does that success look like to you now versus what it was?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and I think, part of my shift has been parent related. Part of it's been, like, doing enough therapy. Like, there's a lot of things that have, like, helped me shift, not just the, like, hitting burnout. But, I mean, in our 20s, culturally, and then also I think in that time of life, at least for myself, my success was measured by, like, PR-worthy business things. I was doing some cool shit, like, I was flying around the world, I was doing cool campaigns with, like, the United Nations and Beyoncé for World Humanitarian Day. It was, like, PR-worthy moments were how I was measuring success, and I was just starting in my late 20s to be like, "Oh, maybe I should save the money that I'm making too," because my success was like, "How fast and how cool can I spend it?" Right? I've grown up, thank God. I got married, decided to control my impulses, but I think for me, like, having autoimmune diseases that I navigate, being a parent, wanting like a true partnership in my marriage and my partnership in my businesses, success actually for me now is flexibility. So almost daily, I get to choose the first few hours of my day. I am so privileged to be able to decide if I want to work, if I want to walk outside. I went on a hike yesterday with a friend who's also a female founder. So, of course, we talked business, but like we hiked. Um, that flexibility is like the biggest gift to me. And honestly, that actually is what success looks like because my flexibility then gets to be gifted to my kids. It means, Ashley, we were texting yesterday and I was like, I'm going to like make it an appointment day. Like I just get to choose my own schedule. And I get that because I worked really hard and I created systems that allow me to do that. And I have realistic expectations that I did not used to have of what could be done in a day. But to me, success is like, it's the flexibility to get to do what I want when I want that I never had before. This is really new to me in the last few years. And it, like I said, it only came because I set boundaries, refocused my priorities. I stopped chasing busyness and I like really grafted myself into my community, into my household, and I'm a lot more present. Like that to me is success. And I hope that even as I'm in the middle of launching another company, which what am I doing? I hope that I remember that. Like, yes, I need the checks. I'm doing a massive fundraise with institutional funding, but also like I can't return to my old habits. Success has to remain that I've set boundaries, that I'm being realistic with my schedule, that I'm like leaning into my kids and my husband and my neighbors that I love. Yeah, I have to remain flexible and I have to create systems to maintain flexibility in order for me to feel like I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think that it's become awareness of your battery remaining full so you can enjoy the life that you've worked so hard to build. I think that I definitely relate to everything that you've said, and I'm sure so many people do because for so long I was pushing myself for to the point where I wasn't enjoying the professional or personal life that I had built. It became just another task, right? Like you mentioned cooking dinner or whatever it might be, it all became just a thing I had to do and I wasn't enjoying it. And it really hit me hard personally. Something that came to me when you were talking, I have a friend who used to say, we have to remember that we are human beings, not human doings. And so I always remember, like, when I'm noticing that, like, no, be, we are supposed to be, not do. And sometimes I mean, just what you said, those we just sometimes just have to get those 3 things done in a day and call that good. Call it good that we can just enjoy our day however we want to enjoy it. We have the flexibility to do that, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have to add the human being versus human doing thing into the meditation you're making for us.
Okay, okay.
Perfect. I'll work on that. Yeah. And Corey, you had mentioned earlier in your professional career that you were almost like seeking that external acceptance from people, like the big PR things. And it just made me think about, and this is kind of a tangent, but social media, like back 10 years ago, social media, you got those likes, you got those follows, like that was it. That's what made you you. That's what made you successful. And it sounds like you've shifted it to where if you feel like you're doing a good job and you're giving yourself that like, then that's success. That's the flexibility that you need. And that's what's making you move forward successfully.
Yeah, and also just like quality. I think when you like measure yourself off of like a count
Mhm.
of like a quantity, when you're measured off of quantity, like you're never going to be satisfied because there's always one more like, there's always one more share. There's always somebody else that's getting a little bit more. So for me, like, to use the social media analogy, it's really about like deep quality relationships. And like, so maybe from like translating that in marketing, it's like DMs. Like I've become really close and connected to people through social media, and you'll never see those relationships because they're happening in my private DMs.
Mhm.
And that's what I want. And I think I'm doing well right now is like translating that to real life too. It's Ashley and I sending each other texts on a regular basis. It's, spending really great quality time with my friends and investing my interest in what they're interested in. The quality has to be the measurement, not the quantity anymore.
Yeah. It's just like with your checklist. If you do 3 things every day, but they are done with quality work, then it's not about how many things you checked off your list. It's about getting things done and then celebrating what you got done in that day. And that's all that it is. All right. So, Correy, you have worked with us before with an EA. So, you know delegation, you know what it's all about. So, let's talk delegation. Now, in our first episode, we mentioned how delegation can feel scary rather than the superpower that it actually is. So, what were your first steps in getting help? And what was that initial feeling when you first delegated a task to somebody that you used to own and was your sole responsibility?
Okay, so well, I'll tell you one thing that really helped is that I had a really high level of trust with Ashley, and I knew Ashley's level of excellence would be like a non-negotiable for anybody that she works with. So that gave me a lot of confidence. My prior experience with delegation wasn't always positive, whether it be previous companies or interns or frankly like contractors or employees. Those relationships I often had to honestly almost babysit. And then it became like, not only was it frustrating, but there was resentment. So when we took the EA approach, I knew that Ashley, I just felt like I could trust Ashley and like the framework that she had built and that it would be like systematic versus like, unstructured, which is often what happens with some other folks you delegate to. What I found really helpful was to start delegating things that weren't going to make or break the business, even though I kind of needed some like critical SOPs written and a lot of stuff cleaned up. It helped like practicing almost the delegation. And I actually say that to a number of my friends. I'm like, number one, you need an EA. Number two, like you have to learn how to release the reins. And so it was practice for me in better explaining what I needed. What I also learned in the process is I had to explain why I needed something done because the context was really critical and having it done in the way I wanted, the timeliness, the prioritization, etc. So I had like for my own mental abilities, like all I could release were some things that were like inconsequential at the beginning. But with like working with Elevate, for example, pretty quickly I was able to be like, they got it. And they actually have more structure than I have. So I think it made it a lot easier for me to be like, hey, I need you to actually like create this account. I need you to like organize my data room from a startup perspective. Like that's like kind of like your business vault of information. And it's a place that I have to spend a lot of time and have look perfect. And it evolved from my like, I'll give you a little bit to like, please take this and make it 10 times better. And also curate a process for how we're never going to get back to how bad it was before. So again, really nervous at the beginning. All I mentally could handle was like little experiments. But what I learned in the process is how much time I got back to do the things that were necessary to actually grow the business. And I realized then I can't go back to doing the small tasks because while the small tasks have to be done in order to keep things running, that is not the best use of my time. Like, and frankly, my background's not in admin. Like, that isn't where my career has evolved from. So for me to pretend like I'm going to be the expert there was kind of silly. So for me, you know, delegation also is very effective when you're delegating things that are not your area of expertise. But that you can explain why it's mission critical to the organization and you can give the context. But like, I've really learned I have to release the reins and I can't be a micromanager on things I'm not an expert on. I have to bring in someone else who like natural flow is in that space.
Where it's their zone of genius. Your zone of genius is somewhere else. That's not your zone of genius. Those
Yeah.
admin tasks, the operational things. And I love that you said, because operations have to happen in a business. That's how a business continues to run. But I love that you said it was like the low risk, low impact tasks that you started delegating, where it's not going to make or break the business. So you start there and then you work your way up. And then you can get to a point where you're doing high impact, high risk because you've built that partnership with whoever you are delegating to, whether that's fractional support or a full time employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some training wheels, just some training wheels to start.
I mean, even like letting someone into my inbox, I was like, first of all, God knows what my dad's going to send me on a random day. I don't know why it never goes to my personal email. It always shows up like, can you help me pick out this rug? And I'm like, or it's like, I don't know, my husband's sending me something. So I was like so protective of my inbox at first. And then I realized, like, you know what I really suck at? Getting through emails in a day. Because you know why? I can't read fast enough and prioritize fast enough. So eventually that was like one of my biggest handoffs was like figure out what is a priority in my inbox. But we had to start small and build rapport with the person I was delegating to so that they understood how I prioritize things. They could help me make decisions. I couldn't like throw them into the deep end of my inbox because, you'd get very lost very fast.
Yeah, I think for me also what I'm hearing is that the muscle that you had to practice, and also when the fact that like you said, I realized quickly that I'm just not good at this stuff, right? And I think that that's the big thing too is that you need to remember that delegating things that you're not good at to someone who is good at it and who loves it. I always joke, I'm like, we love organizing stuff. We love doing spreadsheets. A lot of people don't. So let not only hand it off because you don't enjoy it, but we're going to do it quicker, more efficiently. And also, we might have a whole different approach that you've never thought of. That's probably one of my favorite things about delegating and collaborating in general is the things that can come from it by working with someone who has a whole different approach and perspective, fresh eyes, see things that you would have never seen. You know that Febreze commercial, the like nose blind? I feel like it's like that sometimes. Like you just go blind to the things that aren't working until someone comes in and is like, whoa, let me help you. So it's kind of letting, like you said, so letting someone into your inbox and being like, okay, I can see what's wrong. Let me handle this. So sometimes it is scary, but it can also be pretty beautiful in the end.
And, my experience the last few years as a startup founder, you kind of like do it all at the beginning. And you are also taught within the startup ecosystem that you're going to do it all, which is such a disservice because they say like you're the face of the brand. So you're doing all the sales, you're running ops, you're making all the financial decisions. Like they being blog posts, media articles, accelerators, like literally the startup culture is like, you're the founder, like at the beginning, you're doing it all. And I kind of embraced that at the beginning until I realized, like, path to burnout is I can't do this anymore. I just wish that more startup founders knew that actually your like early infrastructure could be an EA and that person can be specialized to whatever area you need. And that's what I'm gonna do differently with Mind Mode, this new, predictive technology that I'm building, is not to do it all myself. I'm gonna stay, Nichole, like you said, in my zone of genius, and then all the additional support services I need, I'm bringing in experts for. And will it cost a little bit of money up front? Yes, and I'm gonna get back so much, and I can move a lot quicker when I'm not bogged down with stuff that isn't natural for me.
Right. And you'll be a better version of yourself personally, professionally, and in the end, I think everything will thrive because of that, because you're going to remain loving your business and not fast track to burnout because you're trying to do everything. I love
Yeah.
it. One of the things that we hear a lot in regards to why people want to not only the culture telling them that it's normal, you have to do it all, is also it's easier to just do it myself. So that feeling of I'll just do it. What would you say to someone who's stuck in that mindset?
I hear this all the time. And I'm not going to name names, but I have been the person who has said that and had that perspective before. And I actually think it's kind of a lie. So it's not easier to do it myself. Really, what's happening is that you're just maintaining a sense of control, whereas the reality is you're not really in control. So it's usually not faster to do it yourself because you have now just held another person back from taking over. You know, you are training yourself again to not let people in. You're stopping somebody from learning who could have taken over next time. You're just holding yourself back. And so I totally get it. It's kind of like, in the morning when you need to get your kids out the door and you're like, put your socks on, put your socks on. Still need your other sock. Like, where is it? And it would be so much faster for me to just put the kids' socks on. But I'm like, you know what? He's 8. We have to learn that putting our own socks on gets us out the door. The longer I hold him back from not these like kind of basic building blocks of exiting into the school day, I'm holding myself back too. And I'm feeling like I have another thing on my plate. So I actually think this is not just a business like bit of wisdom. This is like a life bit of wisdom that we have to stop trying to like be in control of every detail. And we also have to stop believing that we're always going to do it best or that our version is going to be perfect. Because again, we're holding ourselves back from freedom and we're in flexibility. And then we're also holding other people back from learning to take over and like evolving into this perfect ish version of execution.
We're adding that to the morning mantra as well, just so you know. That
Thank you.
whole thing is going in that we're putting out there because that was gold. But no, it's true though. Like the sock thing, I've got 3 kids. We deal with mornings every morning, but getting out the door to wherever we're going, right? Whether it's a sporting event, whether it is school, whether it's to the grocery store, I'm like, do you have shoes on? Do you have your water bottle? Because my water bottle is not getting depleted 5 seconds into our drive. Do you have a water bottle? Well, no. Okay, then get one. But can you do it? No, I can't. I'm going to go get in the car. I need to go get bags in the car. There's other things I have to do to get us out the door. I cannot do it all. And it's the same in business.
Yeah. This reminds me actually, my dad's full of kind of like life wisdom, which I hate taking in the moment, but he was helping us with the kids. We had a number of sporting things going on. And my dad said to my son, my oldest, he's like, did you check your baseball bag? Do you have everything you need? And Hazel's like, yeah, like, and my dad knew that the glove was not in there because he was looking at the glove on the floor. And my dad said to him again, like, if your glove is not in your bag, then you're not going to have a glove for the game. And Hazel was like, my mom does it. And my dad was like, no, let me teach you a lesson that my mom taught me. It was my job to be ready for the day. And I had to learn these tools, right? Pack my bag, be ready for your sports game, all that kind of stuff. She let me fail by not for me. And he said, it's really embarrassing. And I couldn't play for the day. And I let my team down. And he said, so I had to learn how to do those things on my own because the consequence of it really stunk. And there's so much wisdom and parenting opportunity, but it's like now my son always checks his bag and I don't have to. I have completely released it from my mind. Now my youngest, forget about it. We're not there yet. But Hazel's bag always has water, a snack, his hat, his glove. Like he's done it, but it was because my dad explained to him why he needed to learn, gave him the support to do it. And like, it's now, second nature to him. But if we don't give people the chance to learn, it keeps coming back to us and it becomes a burden that we complain about to our like girlfriends at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always been the one who naturally takes responsibility for everything. And I'm good with that. Like I know I'm the responsible one. But I started to realize I was doing it to the detriment of myself, right? Because I was just taking on everything because I've got it. I don't mind because I really don't. It's just natural. But then eventually it does become where you're resentful of why am I the one doing everything and all of that. And so like you said, it's a personal and professional side skill that we need to be better at so that way we can do what we need to do well and like I said earlier enjoy it. We're not just like drowning in to-dos.
Yep.
No, Correy, you had mentioned that for this new startup that you have, you are hiring people who are in the zone of genius that you need. And I know that you have done fractional hires before. You've also done interns before. What were some of the roles that you have hired outside of your zone of genius to help build, to help support, and, provide that forward momentum?
Yeah. And I would add, we also have hired like a social agency because guess what? I can't edit to save my life. So I tried to use all the tools. That's not my zone of genius. I got ideas everywhere. I'm not an executor there. So for social content, we have gone through an agency. For social engagement, we often will use an intern. Now I'll tell you, it's challenging sometimes because life experience needs to be considered when you're having people engage, especially within like a mental health framework. So that took a little bit more like it was a slower path of engagement. It was a lot of feedback and like practice work, but things that are like more relational socially, interns have been supportive with. I'm not a technical founder. And so we've had to bring in either fractional or even agency based tech support. I can vibe code anything. You have an idea, I'll build you a fake website for it, or even like an app. I'm excellent on these tools. But again, like it's optical because behind the scenes there's no structure. So I've had to outsource tech. What other things? I mean, I worked with Elevate for years and I'm excited I'll work with them with you all again for Mind Mode. And for me, what that is like back of the house organization, it's our SOPs, it's my inbox management, it's calendaring, it's honestly a lot of like startup work. It's like business filings and submitting our profile here and sending a headshot here. And it's stuff that is just like I get distracted really easily on that kind of stuff. So a lot of that admin work has to be outsourced or it becomes honestly kind of like a burden to our business. What else? What I am going to outsource for Mind Mode, it's a B2B SaaS company. A lot of the work I've done in the past is direct to consumer. So this is different. So I'm going to outsource some of my early go to market work. I've never done it before, but I know again, I have connections, I have relationships, but I don't have enough hours in the day to make that my majority of my time. So I'm going to outsource that. I love fractional support. I love the 1099 relationship. Eventually, you have hopefully, fingers crossed, you evolve them into an employee. But the beauty and benefit in an early stage with fractional support is like you really get to see if your values aligned. And I know from for example, again, like Elevate, I feel very values aligned with. Not only do I have that with like Ashley, but everyone I worked with within Elevate understood balance, flexibility, that kind of stuff was really important to me. And so when we're looking at prioritization, like they could represent that for me. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I've done legal. I do fractional work with. Again, like I can't pay like counsel 24/7 to like live within my business. But yeah, it's like it's allowed for me to really figure out, are these relationships I want to keep long term? And if they are, great, we'll move them into an employee relationship if the business needs it and I have the budget and they're like values aligned. But if not, like no harm, no foul. It was a contract. And we'll go try someone else. But yeah, as a startup, you kind of do a lot of fractional, a lot of agency relationships. God bless the interns because there will be many. I always say with a startup, there will be many interns. But yeah, I think what you want to keep though as permanent full-time employees, those are the pillars of the business. So I'm working with the fractional CTO, but as we close our funding round, like he will be a permanent piece of infrastructure within our company. And those like permanent roles are ones that you have to be really selective about. And so the flexibility of fractional services is such a gift when you're in an early stage.
Yeah, I think it really helps set the foundation for what the role could look like. And like you said, it could just remain fractional or the sun might set on that particular relationship, whatever it looks like. But if it does become an opportunity that it's grown into something that should be permanent and you are meshing well with that person, then it's a nice transition as well. Or at the very least, they've helped you set up the role and everything in order to hire full time. So it's a really nice, again, training wheels, I guess, analogy. Something that I heard you say, or what I was hearing as you were talking, is it's almost like what we need to do as founders, especially in the beginning, is remember why we wanted to start this business and where we personally are good at and want to make an impact. And if it is if it is a list of things to do that is distracting from that, you should consider fractional support. So I hear all the time, like you said, the EA side of things, the admin side of things, the marketing side of things, and also the bookkeeping side of things. I feel like those are the ones that I see a lot, and legal, like you said, because we do fractional legal and all of that. And so I think it's anything that tends to be time consuming and very distracting from what your intention and impact is in the first place as the founder.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot bookkeeping in my list because looking at receipts is the bane of my existence. I'm
Right.
like, I do not remember where this goes or what it was for.
And
Yes.
it's a full-time job to keep up with what is supposed to go where according to the tax. I mean, I don't have time to read tax code. I don't know about you, but
Yeah. No, zero time for that.
yeah.
And we don't have time to train on it. We don't have that expertise. Like the people that we can, you know, outsource these types of things to, again, it's their zone of genius. Let them have
Yeah.
it. Let them shine in that role and move forward.
And like As a female founder, I will say I kind of love hiring other female founders for my services. Like it feels good to do that. Not only does it feel good because my like to-do list has gotten shorter, but like I get to invest in other people that are helping companies that are like solving problems. Like it actually feels good when you're choosing a contractor or an agency or whatever that is mission aligned. Like you want to see them successful. And as you keep using them, like they can become more successful. So I feel like it's also this like there's like a give back loop in there somehow, you know?
Absolutely.
So, Correy, what would you tell the version of you who was burnt out, juggling everything, and afraid to ask for help? If you could talk to 10 years ago, Correy.
I just figured out a few weeks ago with my therapist that really what I've been seeking all along is a sense of safety. And for me, safety was stability and just like certainty of what the next day would hold. And I wish that I had a lot more clarity as I was chasing my career because I would have just made such different decisions if I knew that my deep need, like everyone has their own deep inherent needs, mine was a sense of safety and security. So, what I would have honestly told that young person was like, find a new therapist because the therapist services that I was getting then were a lot more limited. What helped me get to a place that I am now is I started using more like somatic tools and really understanding what the heck is my body telling me because my body's giving me signals all the time. Um, and as soon as I like found a therapist that like really made sense to me, not one that like matched a textbook description of what this role was, but one who like I really felt safe with, so many things changed because I finally understood the motivation of my decisions and the motivation of some of my like burnout, reaching and all of that. So I know this kind of like goes in line with the work I do at Movement Genius and then the work that we're doing at Mind Mode, but I neglected the mental side of my human experience for many years. And a lot of it was out of trauma. Like my mind felt like a scary place. But if I would have just considered my mental well-being, I don't think I would have been on the like burnout train for quite as long. But as we were being raised, like mental health was like abstract. And then as it became less abstract, it kind of became a bad word. And then now it's like people use it more fluidly, but hopefully we'll get to a place where like you go to services for mental health the same amount of times you go for physical health because it's just part of our human experience. And if I just would have had that context and understood that there's like therapists that are like match me in a really specific way, I I would have understood so much more about my personal needs and made a lot different decisions. So I'm really keeping the therapy industry in business with my teen years therapy.
Feel like everything you just said is exactly why I have loved my 30s so much more than my 20s because you understand yourself so much more now. And I hope that that means we can help our next generation understand themselves better earlier. And like you said, once you understand yourself, you start making such better decisions to care for yourself and you become such a better version of you. But I just have to say that that is so far why I'm loving my 30s more than my 20s.
Well, and you just get to a point, whether it's in business or in life, where if things don't serve you, you get rid of them.
Mhm.
And you just have to be okay with making those decisions to say, not going to do this. I'm going to get rid of this, or I'm going to pass this to somebody else to do for me because it's not serving me. And I need to make sure that I am serving myself as a human, as a business owner, as a parent, as a friend. So here you go. This is what I need done. This is the end goal. Please send it to me when it's complete and I'll
Yes.
approve it so that it can get done. So, Correy, for our listeners, what would be one thing you would tell them today to be able to, if they're feeling overwhelmed, to take a step back, reflect for a quick hot minute before it becomes a crisis?
Dare I answer you a little differently? I would say actually don't wait till you're a step away from crisis. I think one of the most effective strategies for surviving this season of the world and of life that we're all in right now is to actually have a really effective toolkit that's personalized to you. And what I think people need to do is to give themselves permission to figure out, what do they feel like they're missing? What are they motivated by? What hurts? What the pain points are? Like, get to know yourself and then decide, what are the 3 tools that work for me when I am overwhelmed, when I am overwhelmed with business, overwhelmed with grief, whatever it is, right? But we can't just like come up with these on the spot. So I think that's what's so important, as proactively people need to go figure out what that is. For me, being outside walking with friends, I have figured out that is a tool in my toolkit. And also, I have told my friends that that's a tool in my toolkit. So they know when I ask for a walk, they know I'm serious. Like, I need it. And another thing, for example, that I like to do is like a somatic breath work routine. There's like a fire breathing routine. If you tell me to box breathe, don't tell anyone on our platform this, but if you tell me to box breathe, I won't listen, because box breathing is not it for my toolkit. The fire breathing, it totally brings me into the present and my brain can't spiral. So again, like, there's not like one thing I would say other than you have to get ahead of your crisis. And even when you think that you don't need something, the proactive work is going to be worth it, because there will be a moment where I have to do like 10 things I see, because my brain has to come out of their like this loop that I'm in. And I only know that because I did the proactive work to figure out, these are the things that work for me and here are the things that do not work for me. Like, if you tell me to touch grass, I'm going to have a rash because I'm allergic to grass. That's a bad choice for me. But I've done the work. I know what has to exist in my toolkit, and I've also told other people what my toolkit includes, so that when I do get to a place of crisis, I'm not alone and I do have resources to tap into. So figure out what your 3 things are in your toolkit and your mental health toolkit. Those are like critical to surviving life, family, career. Um, there's a lot happening in our world this year, but there's always going to be a lot happening in our world as everything is evolving. So we have to do the prep work to be ready as life comes at us.
Yeah, I think that that is such great advice, because there is no copy paste version that works for everybody all around. And I love your point that we have to know what works for us before the crisis happens, because there's always going to be something, whether it is internal, external, business, worldwide, whatever it might be. There's always going to be something that could really knock us off our toes, right? And so I think just coming up with a list of things that I know works for me is so important. I love that you have certain breathing that you know does not work and certain that does. And that's so, I love that. I think we should all have that. It reminds me of, over summer, I was telling my kids that they're going to get used to being bored. And they would just like, I don't know what to do, and throw themselves on the ground. There's nothing to do. And I'm like, there's a house full of things to do, full. And one day Riley came up to me and said, Mom, I'm going to make a board list. I'm going to make a list of 10 things to do when I'm bored, so I don't have to think of it when I'm bored. And I was like, that's a great idea. So then she inspired Mason. Now Mason has it. And that's what it reminds me of, is we need to have our crisis list, but we need to come up with it not in crisis, right? We need to have our board list before we're bored. So
Yeah. And like, maybe let's also just like tack it on the wall, because we can normalize it. We can
mhm.
normalize that life's going to happen to us and we need like a quick view of how we're going to handle it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be major crisis, right? It could just be a moment of overwhelm that those tools are going to work for you too. So yeah, have them handy. Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you again, Correy, for joining us. The conversation was packed with lots of wisdom that I'm sure many people will take away.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the listeners want to get in touch with Correy, we will have all of her links in the show notes so you can get your own breathing methods under wraps. You can see where she's at in her startup journey. But all of those will be in the show notes. But if this episode got you thinking about your own delegation habits, your own burnout, make sure that you hit follow and share with someone who might also be on the edge of burnout.
And don't forget to grab your free workbook and tools at the link in the show notes. And remember, you've got